Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. I've just realised I've just seen myself on. Bear, I did dress myself this morning, just very quickly. Green, green, green. I don't know what happened, but I'm very green. There is a slight change today, by the way. For those of you that are watching over on Instagram, you are seeing me in a vertical format. Yeah, the system that I use to broadcast this show has allowed me to now do like a double up. So I can broadcast in a horizontal YouTube shape over on Facebook and on YouTube and on LinkedIn. But over on Instagram, I'm coming through vertical. Never done it before. First day today, looks okay. Looks okay. Let's have a look. Ken Hatcher has just arrived. He's got, with the exception of snow and possibly a plague of frogs, he's got all the weather today. Birgit Post 29 says, have a nice day. You too. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Where are you watching from, Birgit Post? Birgit, that sounds like a Norwegian name perhaps, or Swedish. Birgit. I've met a Birgit in Sweden, but I'm not sure. Birgit, where are you watching from? Also interested to see, as I put the comments up on the screen like I'm doing now, morning all, says Mark Whiting. It actually comes up vertically over on Instagram. This is all a learning curve for me. Good morning, Mark. Gary Muirhead was first off the line this morning at precisely 10 o'clock. Good morning to you, Gary. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Loads and loads of stuff to get through today. I'm sure I say that every single day. Apparently, our friend Birgit is actually watching from Bremen in Germany. Good morning. Good morning. Or I don't know. As you can tell, I can barely speak English, let alone German. But good morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Loads to get through today, including. I'll come on to the news in just a moment, but I'm sure you're all aware of this this thing. What's going on between Donald Trump and the BBC? And I realise he has his finger on the nuclear button, and he has the codes and all of that sort of stuff. But if you were the head of the BBC, would you not just be tempted to tell him to piss off? Yeah, you can pull that nonsense over in America, but we're not having it here. On your bike, pal. Yeah, that would be my temptation. Mick Norton has just joined us as well. We have representatives in the audience from Wales, from Wakefield, and from Bremen in Germany, and in Scotland, and all other places around the place. I have to say, I'm really quite taken with the look over on Instagram. It's looking pretty damn fun, and broadcast quality is awesome as well. It's also doing a thing. I'm sorry, I've never seen this before. It's also doing a thing. When I put a comment up on the screen, it kind of drops me down a bit and puts the comment up above. And then when I take it away again, I pop back up again. It's really slick. If you are on Instagram, go and take a look. Demolition_news, I think we are. Better watch it, Mark. He'll be after you next. I mean that would be my thing. If I got a phone call, this is the White House. The president of the United States of America is threatening to sue you for $1 billion. The answer would be 2 words, and the second one would most definitely be off. I'll leave you to fill in the gaps. Anyway, loads of stuff to do. Taking a trip down memory road. That's not absolutely true, but we are feeling a little bit nostalgic, sentimental today in our after show chat. So I'll be doing that a bit later on with loads of stuff for you, including something completely out of left field from Develon. I'll tell you about that in a moment. So without further ado, let me roll the intro and get this show on the road. It is Tuesday, the 11th of November. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, something surprising this way comes from Develon. We've got a Hyundai wheel loader demonstrating its reliability. We've got a cracking fleet of Kobelco excavators to check out as well, and Malaga, the Mecca of machinery. Caterpillar, rather annoyingly, have done something that I wanted to do. There was talk about me going over to Malaga a few months ago. Couldn't make it work. The timing was all off. And one of my plans, I was going over basically for 2 days, but I only had a day of work. So my plan was to go over there, take the drone with me, and to do a walkthrough of the Malaga training centre. As I say, my trip never came off, and now Caterpillar have done it themselves. In truth, they've done it way better than I would have done. So but we'll be showing you that later in the show. And yes, in today's edition of Mark's Morning Monologue, the test of time. I'll be talking diggers and denim. Trust me, it kind of ties together. But before we do any of that, let's do a buzz. So this is a headline from where is it from? It's from Construction Inquirer this morning. HSE issues emergency guidance after Ascent collapse. So apparently, a company called Ascent Building Control gone pop, along with a couple of sister companies. Happens all the time in the construction trade. The issue with this one is that they are an assessor under the new Building Act. So let's have a look. Let me have a look. Under the Building Act, all three private inspectors have now counselled every live project. So this company would have been basically overseeing certain high-risk projects, and now they've gone pop, and those jobs, all of those contracts, with all of the machinery, all the people, all the turnover, all the cash flow, all the subcontractors, all of that stopped. The official receiver has been appointed liquidator following winding up orders made on the 6th of November. Under the Building Act, all three private inspectors have now cancelled every live project. Clients now have 7 days to find new registered building control approver or face automatic reversion to the local council. For non-higher risk schemes, construction can continue, but a new registered building control approver must be appointed immediately. If a replacement initial notice is not lodged within 7 days of receiving a cancellation notice, oversight transfers automatically to the local authority. Is anybody else thinking that somehow this government kind of has the opposite of the Midas touch? You remember King Midas, everything he touches turns to gold. Everything this this government touches, particularly it seems in the field of demolition and construction, turns to shit. Call me cynical if you will, you wouldn't be the first, but does that not feel like 7 days to appoint a new assessor? And I would imagine, I mean, bearing in mind this sort of assessment business under the Building Act is a fairly new thing. I don't suppose we've got a huge amount of building assessors out there. I've not checked, but I don't suppose we have. And those that we do have, I would imagine, are absolutely inundated with work. So if you're working on a tower block right now, and Ascent was one of the companies that you had to get approval from, they've now gone pop. You've now got until probably Monday next week to get somebody else to assess your building, or the whole thing grows to a halt. Anybody else think that's probably not a great idea? Let's have a look. Mick Norton says the BBC have engineered their own demise. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, listen, I know it's really quite fashionable to criticise the BBC, and they're not above criticism. I'd be the first to admit that. But what I would say is, I mean, I sit here on a daily basis and I edit stuff, and I often edit not to put my own bias on it, but to make the narrative fit the subject. So, for example, I mean, I'm writing at the moment still about these large panel system buildings. And there is, just to give you a bit of balance, okay? So we've had a couple of years now where there's been this drive towards retrofit first. Demolition is the enemy. We must retrofit and refurbish at every opportunity. Demolition as a last resort. Because of these large panel system buildings, any fix that's made to them is only going to last about 20 years. It's phenomenally expensive, and there's no guarantee that it will even last for 20 years. So the kind of the pendulum has swung back in favour of demolition. and I have covered it as such. Now, I've not covered it in a I mean, it's balanced. I've showed both sides, but what I've said is this is good news for demolition. Now, it might be bad for the retrofit industry. It might even be bad for the environment ultimately. But because of the way that I've written it, because of the way I'm presenting it with the side that my audience favours. Yeah, there you are. Ken Hatcher says, I'd like to go to Cat in Malaga for a look here. Well, I could do you the next best thing in about half an hour. Health and safety gone bankrupt. Lol mad. He says, Dan Cullen, never normally late, but he's here anyway. Good morning. Sorry a bit late. Not a problem at all. Mick Milton, no wonder unemployment is now at 5%. This government is killing this country. Does feel a lot like it. Chris Fold says, good morning, chaps. Today's drill is over the top. Be careful, you might get a splinter off the duckboards. Lest we forget. Yeah, lest we forget indeed. And BBC is struggling against the rest of the social media. It's a big world now. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But you've got, I mean, listen, I mean, it's easy to point at, the BBC bit that's on the telly and say, they're behind the times. And yes, to a degree, they are. Although, if you look at their entire broadcast schedule, and there's another thing that I would say in defence of the BBC. When you look at, they are broadcasting 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Mr. Trump has taken umbrage to about 12 seconds of one show out of hundreds of thousands. And it's a big deal. What about the rest of what they do, which, to a large degree is largely faultless, I would say. You might say there's a bit of a lack of impartiality in their news coverage and stuff, but surely that's balanced out by David Attenborough. I don't know. EastEnders. I've got to be honest, I don't really watch terrestrial TV. I mean, I don't watch TV at all. But really? Is this what we pay our TV license for? I mean, see, there is a thing where I do have a concern with that. I listen. Donald Trump throws around lawsuits like a spoilt child, and he does that, in America, and they all bend the knee and pay him the money that he wants. If we do that here, whose money are we paying him? Has the BBC got a war chest just in case rogue presidents sue them at some point? Or are we paying it back out of our license fee? The BBC has served us well for however long, the best part of 100 years probably. And, by and large, doesn't put a foot wrong much, does an awful lot of good with its world broadcasting and everything else, does all of those things. And then because you've got an orange twat in the White House, suddenly the British public are going to bail out the BBC? Wouldn't happen on my watch. I'd tell them to go and do one. The whole job is full of misinformation, AI-generated images. There's plenty out there that believe it. Precisely the same. Listen, I'm at the point now where, and I still err towards BBC and Sky. Believe them first, then do my own homework. But with what I see online now, it is literally a case of don't believe anything, check it. And the thought that the BBC is losing readership or viewership to, I mean, imagine if the BBC, the mighty BBC, Auntie Beeb, were to lose viewership to me, a Burke in a bedroom with a webcam. Doesn't feel right, does it? Doesn't feel right at all. Mick Norton says, how does the BBC warrant 21,000 employees? It's a good question. It is a good question. I do remember me and Fred went to see the aftermath of a building explosion. A guy had been holding gas canisters. They'd blown half the bloody building down. And a demolition company had been called in to make it safe. And it wasn't far away. So we just jumped in the car one afternoon and went down there. Well, we arrived, me with a camera, Fred with a camera, and some audio gear. And then Then the BBC arrived. They were 5 up, massive cameras. They had a guy with a mic. They had a director. They had a reporter. So yes. Having said that, what I produce compared to what the crew on planet Earth produce, it's quite different, isn't it? And I know when I was up at the BBC, let me think, 3 months ago, Broadcasting House, and to get my bit to camera, there were 2 people. There was the guy that was on sound, light, camera, and there was a reporter. That was all there was. It wasn't. I mean, to be perfectly honest, that's exactly how I would have filmed it personally. Just a Burke with a camera. So listen. I swing both ways. I think it's a matter of balance, and I think the BBC, for all the years and for all that it produces, not just on TV but online and everywhere else and on radio, for all of that, they are still very, very, very much in credit. Yes, there have been blips, no question about it. Let he who is without sin and all that, there have been blips along the way. But if you took everything that the BBC has produced, compared to against everything the BBC has produced poorly, they're in credit. They're absolutely in credit. BBC says it fact checks a lot of reports. The problem is some people don't tell you what they want you to know. The truth is out there, but it's getting hard to find. Yeah, it is. And we've got a situation now where I wasn't planning to talk about this. This is completely off the beam of where the show was going. But the problem you've got now is you've got kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy with social media. Used to be a case of the BBC would report on a thing, because of the reach and the influence and the power of the BBC, that became the de facto report on that thing. There's been an earthquake in Korea. The BBC have reported on it. They've got the facts, and therefore that's the problem you've got now. Is because of the way that algorithms work. For one thing, social media often gets to the news first. So the BBC is then playing catch up, and Sky and ITV and all the other news channels as well. But when you think about what the BBC can achieve, the BBC might reach an audience of 1 million people, possibly, on a particular item. I've got videos that have been seen by 47 million. Does that make me more influential than the BBC? No. Does it make my reporting more reliable than the BBC? No. But because I've got that reach and that audience, all of a sudden my word and my words are given precedence, and wrongly, absolutely wrongly. And you then end up with the whole thing going around in a circle. When the Manchester building collapsed, I was actually telling somebody this over the weekend. The Manchester collapse happened. Manchester Evening News were on the case. They were there on the spot. So they had people out there. They were talking to people that had seen it happen, and filming it live and everything else. Well, about 45 minutes after they did that, I then put a piece up on Demolition News, and I was actually doing a live stream, and I had a phone call for an 0161 number. When I finished doing the live stream, I picked it up. Manchester Evening News were asking me for my comment on a thing they were reporting on. I was actually reporting on their reporting. You're just going round in bloody circles. Chris Ford. Chris, do me a favour, would you? Could you send me the name of that company on the QT through WhatsApp or something? Changing the subject. The large metal recycling company has issued a third notice to appoint an administrator. That's big news indeed. Big news indeed. Anyway, we're done talking about the HSE. We're done talking about the BBC. We're done talking about anything else that happens to have an acronym. We're going to get on with the show now. I'm going to do it starting with this. Mick Norton says, 23.8 million BBC licence payers at £174 per viewer. Not a bad little earner. Okay, that's fair enough. What I would say is you kind of need to do the division a little bit further than that. I mean, I've got a TV licence, as the law requires. There are 4 people in my house who all get to watch the output of the BBC. If Planet Earth or anything else that David Attenborough produces, and I keep going back to that because I do think it is really the high point of the production values of the BBC. If rather than putting it onto terrestrial TV, they put it into cinemas, it would cost me about 15 quid per episode to go and watch it. So I would quickly use up my 174 quid. If I took one of my kids or my wife with me, I would go through that in next to no time at all. And then also there's all the bits in between the David Attenborough, like Gone Fishing, 6 episodes of Gone Fishing. If I'm going to pay a tenner each for those, all right. I mean, I'd rather not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not volunteering to send the BBC additional money, and I think Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse are probably doing quite nicely already. But I don't think that's bad value at all. And as I say, 24/7, 365 days a year, they are broadcasting, and most of it is very, very good. There is some shit, but listen, I I'm not in the same business, but I'm in the same business. Some of these shows I look back and think, well, yeah, I leave here and my wife usually says, "How was the show?" Sometimes I go, "That was a belter." Not because of what I've said, or well, sometimes it is, but because of your input. Some of it is good. Some shows are fillers. I look back and think, "Eesh, that wasn't my finest hour." The BBC will be the same. Anyway, I flagged this up. So I was sat day before yesterday. You might recall when Doosan became Develon, ConExpo before last. It coincided with the launch of a couple of dozers. They had the DD100, which was quite small and designed apparently specifically for the US, and the DD130, which was designed for the US and the rest of the world. We've had the DD130 over here. I've seen it at shows. I'm sure there are a few out in action as well. Well, a couple of days ago, it came the news that they've actually decided the DD100 will be coming this way as well, which I thought, oh, that's quite good news. As I've seen it in the flesh and I'm familiar with it, that's good news. What I didn't see coming was there is a Develon backhoe loader heading down the pipes. There is. I find it interesting. I mean, it's already a pretty competitive market anyway. You think about, certainly here in the UK, we've got our beloved JCB, we've got the Cat, we've got the Case. There are others out there, obviously Komatsu, Hydrema, and people like that, all making backhoe loaders. But I was led to believe that the backhoe loader was basically going out of fashion. What do Develon know that we don't? Why have they decided that now is the time to throw their hat into the ring? Dan says, "Did anyone see that coming?" Not ever. No. At no point did I think that'll be the next move. No. No. I mean, if anything, I mean, and it's a long way off. I actually thought that the next news on backhoe loaders was either a complete redesign, unlikely, or somebody, one of the lesser manufacturers saying, "That's it, we're done with backhoe loaders, we're dropping out of the market. We're going to leave JCB and John Deere and Case to fight amongst themselves." At no point did I think that somebody else was going to throw their hat into the ring, and yet they have, as Chris Ford has said. Wow, indeed. Jonathan Duras, good morning, Jonathan. Says, "Morning, all. That looks interesting." It really does, doesn't it? Really does. And I wonder what they've done. I mean, obviously that was only a 30-second clip, and 15 seconds of it was the branding. I wonder what they've done to the backhoe loader that makes them think they can grab a slice of the market. Are they going to come in low cost? If so, is that sustainable? That's one thing. But or have they spotted something that they can optimize that the others aren't? I genuinely cannot think what they can do to steal a march on the likes of JCB and Caterpillar, who have been in the backhoe business since Chrysler was acquired by it. I literally can't think, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with next. The backhoe loader market now isn't what it was in the UK. No, it's not. Now again, I got that video from the Develon global website. Is that backhoe loader destined for UK shores, or have they spotted a bit of a hole over in America? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But as I say, that was one of the reasons I mentioned the dozers. The original idea was DD100 for America, DD130 for Europe. We've now got the DD100 as well. So even if that is an American aimed machine, could we be seeing more? And I don't actually believe that the American backhoe market is any less competitive than here. If anything, it's more so, because you've got the John Deere addition as well, which we don't have to worry about here. Dan says that'd be cool looking. I agree. Ken Hatter is on his way out the door. Yeah, we've already been going for half an hour and we've done absolutely nothing. Chris Ford says, years ago, back in the day, I used to get invited to JCB to try their latest machine against the competition. Yeah. Was it Ken? I think no. I think Ken. I think Ken and Jim have both been basically to try out the new machines, but not in comparison with the others. JCB used to be really good at that. I'll bore you with some of their antics at some other time. We're going Hyundai in just a moment after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, listen, no need for introduction. This is a Hyundai wheel loader that's working 11 hours a day without any faults, which is kind of the minimum you would expect, but here we are.
Basically runs 11 hours a day. We've got 1,700 hours on the machine with no downtime at all. Very dependable. I'd put it up against any machine in its class. We work hard. It's pretty much going all day. This has plenty of power. It's got the bigger engine in it. This will feed the gravel plant, the concrete plant, and load all the trucks. So it's pretty busy. It'll dig anything. Big difference between a 9-yard bucket and a 7-yard bucket. Because if you're feeding that gravel plant, I got to feed that, so I've got to fill it up to go load the trucks, So the quicker I can get that filled, the better. It's a very efficient machine. The 360 all around is a big benefit, especially in a very busy yard like this. We've got concrete trucks coming in, road trucks, very good to have. The comfort makes a big difference, The combination with the air ride seat and the ride control, it's a pretty smooth ride, and it's a lot easier on your body. We've never had any problems with the service end from Hyundai. Got 1,700 hours and we've done nothing to it except for oil changes and service. This machine is the best one I've driven. It's a good machine, moves fast, it's comfortable, and they treat us good.
Chris Ford, thank you very much indeed for your message on WhatsApp. You confirmed my suspicions, basically. I'd taken a wild guess, and my guess was right, as it turns out. Chris also says, it's been over 20 years since I bought a new backhoe loader. Still got a JCB 2C in the yard somewhere. Hold that thought, because today's morning monologue is about that kind of thing. It really is, I promise you. Mick Norton says, many companies are seeking alternatives to backhoe loaders because the competency of operators is highly questionable in this skill set. Is that one of the drivers? I mean, I've never quite fathomed. I realise this is a weird comparison to draw, but you see this. One of the reasons that not just this one, but smartphones in general are as popular as they are, is that they are many things to many people. Obviously, They work as a phone. I mean, I very rarely use it as a phone, but I can send text messages and emails and WhatsApps and everything else. I can surf the internet. I can go on social media. I can take photographs. I can shoot video. I can do a whole multitude of things. And that I always thought was kind of the way we were moving as a society. One thing to do multiple things, jack of all trades and all that kind of thing. But surely the backhoe loader is the very embodiment of that. Digger at one end, loader at the other, and I would have always thought that was the way things were. And yeah, in field of backhoe loaders, we seem to have had a move towards mini excavators, telescopic handlers. Bizarre. Mostly diggers. Garvin just said, I'd really love to spend a few months on a backhoe loader. I have to say, backhoe loader is the machine I've operated longest. I did a week's course up at JCB. About 1,000 years ago. It was a fine time, I tell you what. I think where I actually did my training is now basically under the factory. There was like a proving ground that has since been built on and stuff. But yeah, I had a week. I had a couple of days of instruction, and then I was basically given 3 days. Okay, perform this thing. Yeah, it was great fun. Great fun. Still love me a backhoe loader. 1,700 hours, be more impressive if it done 17,000 hours without a problem. Nothing wrong with Hyundai equipment. Totally agree. Dan says, again, why are brands not putting 360-degree cameras on as standard? Because they cost money. Andy Thornton is here. Good morning, Andy. Hope you're fit and well, my friend. Dan, can you guarantee to be looking at the right camera at the right time? And some of the images are questionable at times as well. Do you know, it's a couple of things. Obviously, the weather has turned. My wife's car has got a reversing camera on it. And I was reminded literally a day or two ago, started the car up, and I'm now far too lazy and far too old and far too creaky to look over my shoulder when I'm reversing. So I have a look in the mirror, make sure the neighbour's cat isn't sat in the drive. I had a look, and it had been raining. I could see nothing. Not only could I not see a cat, I don't think I'd have noticed if there was a human being laying behind the car. Cameras are not the ultimate answer. Keeping people and machines, keeping them apart. That's probably a better answer. Just saying. We've got more. We have more. What are we doing next? We're going Kobelco after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
What's better than a Kobelco excavator? A bunch of Kobelco excavators.
My name's Adam Longtoe. Longtoe Tree Service is the company. We're out of Bradford, Vermont. Specialize in taking trees down around houses, and mostly hazard trees or full cleanup removal, all debris. We have a grapple saw truck, knuckle boom crane, track lift, stump grinders, that sort of thing, chippers. We just picked up one of these blade runners. Dealt with Don over at Fink. Did a couple good sized jobs, roadside jobs. We also have a grapple saw on that and a mulching head, and it really cut down the timeline of that project. On that particular job, because we were able to, kind of reach up, grab trees, and whether we cut them off up top and set them in the road, or held them up high and the guys cut them off on the ground, set them in the road, rather than piecing everything down. Yeah, really helped out a lot. Very rarely do we do just one job a day, so we're constantly moving equipment, keeping the crew in line, everyone's headed the same direction. Before I bought this, I actually went around and tried all sorts of machines, cats, Komatsu, everything pretty much, and the cab and the smoothness and the pushing power that this machine had really just sold it to me. The experience here at the ranch has been great. Everyone's very nice and welcoming and knowledgeable. Had fun playing around with the machines, trying different stuff out. All real smooth, nice machine.
Very nice too. Yeah, like that. We've got one more film for you. I'm gonna do our girl with the merch in just a moment. Give you time to go and pack your bucket and spade because we're off to Malaga after this.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Mick Norton says, just love the Yanks can-do attitude. Didn't we used to have one of those? Was that not a thing? Have I imagined that? Am I harking back to days that never happened? Dan Cullen says, you're teasing us now, Mark. I do apologise. I'll do another one of those with some hairy ass build rat with his arse hanging out of his jeans, just to bring you back down to earth. I probably won't do that. Right, one final film for you before we get into the morning monologue. We're off to Malaga with Caterpillar. I've been there. I've not been there for a few years. I've been there. It's phenomenal. By the looks of this, it's got even more phenomenal since the last time I was there. Questions. Let's do Mick Norton first. Not a question. He says Oliver Cromwell had the right approach to Christmas. He banned it. Bar humbug from Wakefield. Dan Cullen says, why are all these brands going for technology? I have my own personal view on that, and that is one of the few areas remaining where they can differentiate. When you think about the number of manufacturers that are using the same engines, the same hydraulic pumps, the same motors, the same components as their nearest competitor. Where do you differentiate? Differentiate in the technology that you apply to the machine. That's my take on it. Obviously, there is a desire to make the machines better and everything else, but does that make it better, or does it just make it more complex? That's my feeling. Peter McKenna is here, and he says March, and then he says merch. Not sure what he's talking about there. Although that does possibly refer to our merch store, our merchandise store, which is open for business. Also got the first of our, can't call them books because they're not big enough to be a book, but they're our publications. The first one has gone great guns. Second one is coming down the tubes. Third one will be out before Christmas. So we're going absolutely great guns on those. And I'm actually planning, I'm trying to figure out the maths on it. I'm actually planning to do a Christmas bundle. So the first book was free anyway, so that you can get that regardless. But my plan is to charge for the next two books. But in the run up to Christmas, you'll be able to get all three for a cut price deal. That's the plan. I'll keep you posted. Dan says it's more problems to deal with. It is. It is. But it is. I mean, when you think about it, I blow hot and cold. I love technology. I really do, and I like the excitement, and I like the innovation and just the smartness involved in it all. But we've got a smart TV, which sounds great, and we could, if we wanted to, surf the internet on it. We could play YouTube videos through it. Don't know. my wife puts it on the BBC or on Netflix, and that's where it stays. There's no tech. So, I mean, basically, I've got all of that tech built into my TV. Nothing. I don't use any of it. Much the same as the machine I'm talking to you now. When I'm not doing this show, I'm basically staring down the barrel of a camera, but beneath it is a computer. A couple of grand's worth of computer. It's got all of this computing power, it's got the M2 chip and all the whatever that fucking means. It's got all of that kind of stuff, and I use it as a typewriter. I do. I use it as a typewriter. I've got all that technology at my disposal, and I use a little bit of it for an hour a day to do this. But the rest of the time, it's just a typewriter. But I've got it. I do wonder if we've got exactly the same thing with our equipment. Peter says Jeep have recalled 375,000 E-Wranglers, one of their others, due to Samsung battery degradation from new. That's a costly business. I would imagine Samsung are puckering somewhat right now. I mean, they can afford it. Let's be absolutely honest. They're a massive company, but 375,000. That's not great either. And the E-Wrangler, isn't that a weird thing? I always thought the Wrangler was, alongside many others, it was kind of the redneck vehicle of choice. But big hulking engine, burn diesel like it's going out of fashion, or petrol. An E-Wrangler? Is that where we are now? I don't know. Anyway, people, it is time. It is that time. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue, which talks diggers and denim. You'll see. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, you'll see me again immediately after this. In my wardrobe, there's a denim jacket. Wasn't made by Levi's or Wrangler. In fact, I've no idea what make it is. I bought it secondhand at Camden Market about 30 years ago, and it's been a staple of my wardrobe ever since. Over the years, I've worn it with shirts and ties, casual shirts and T-shirts. I once wore it with nothing underneath at all, not to look sexy or cool, but because I dropped the entire contents of a burrito down the front of my white T-shirt. My denim jacket has accompanied me around the world. It's been to construction equipment exhibitions and music festivals. It once blew into a river while I was fishing, and it's doubled as a dog bed in the back of my car on more than one occasion. It's long since lost that stiffness of new denim. It no longer stands proud on my shoulders, it drapes. In fact, it's no longer denim jacket shaped, it's me shaped. I wear it in spring when it's a bit too cool for a t-shirt alone. I wear it in summer because British weather, you just never know. I wear it in the autumn with a jumper, and I wear it under a heavier coat in the winter. Now, I own some amazing shoes, a large collection of designer ties, and several very expensive handmade suits. But I've worn that jacket more than all of those items combined. That jacket cost me 10 quid. It's probably the best tenner I've ever spent on clothing. In my day, excuse me, in my day job as a demolition and construction journalist, I'm focused on the new, obsessive about the now. I'm invited to factories to see hot new machines roll off equally hot production lines. I'll happily travel halfway around the world to see the latest kit at a major exhibition. Together with others who do a similar job to me, I get very excited about the next generation of this machine, the Dash 11 version of that machine, and the Series Y of another. I'll report on sleeker designs, fractional reductions in fuel consumption, marginal gains in dig depth and reach, the addition of a restyled cup holder, and the aesthetics of a new engine cover. But then, once that machine has been launched and the R&D team return to their day jobs, I move on. As far as I'm concerned, the story's over, which is insane, because the story of that machine is literally just beginning. Now, yes, it looked amazing in those artfully lit manufacturer photos and that carefully choreographed corporate video. In the 10 minutes I was allowed to take it for a spin, it felt powerful, high-tech, and it had that unmistakable new cab smell. That machine would have been checked, double-checked, and then checked again before throwing the keys to a cynical old journalist like me. The manufacturer would have been determined that I and others saw that machine at its very best. And yet, in many ways, they were showing it at its worst. How much more comfortable will that seat become after a year or two of constant use? How much more fluid will the controls feel when they've completed the same duty cycles thousands of times? How much smoother will that engine sound and run when it's properly run in? How much more precise will that machine be when a decent operator has dialed it in to match the site, the material, and the application? That machine looks pristine and impressive when it rolls out of the factory and into the sunlight, but in all likelihood, it'll look even better when it's weathered, when time has given it that certain patina that makes vintage equipment just so much more appealing. And this extends way beyond just looks and feel. It reaches into cold, hard data and into cold, hard cash. When you buy an excavator or a wheel loader or a dozer, you do it at least partly on blind faith. You'll have done your homework, of course. You'll have compared manufacturers and models, run complex calculations on likely owning and operating costs, but you're never entirely sure. With the passage of time comes wisdom and experience. That excavator that seemed expensive at the point of purchase may have long since paid for itself several times over. It might have proved cheap to run, a bit less thirsty than you feared. Spare parts from the manufacturer might have looked worryingly expensive at first, but 5 years later, you spent remarkably little because the machine just doesn't go wrong. Your ownership cost calculations were based on a single working lifetime of 4 years, but on reliability alone, you've kept it for 6, and it's just been rebuilt. Now, I paid £10 for my second-hand denim jacket. Even if I'd worn it once and thrown it away, it would have been really good value. But thousands of wears and more than 30 years later, that jacket feels like the deal of a lifetime. And your excavator might just prove to be the same. Might look a little shabby round the edges, slightly faded by time, but looking and performing better than ever. Maybe even earning admiring glasses. I will get this sentence right, because it is the last one. Maybe even earning admiring glances from those who recognize quality and the undeniable beauty of age. Sorry about the last minute stumble. I could see the finish line. I raced too far ahead. There you are. How about the Zoomline electric combine harvester? I did see that, actually. I'm a regular visitor to the Zoomline. Zoomline do a lot of stuff that I'm not interested in. They do, because they're very active in the tractor business. They're also active in the crane business, both of which kind of exist over there. I don't get involved in it, but yes, they do have that. You've had value for money there, pal. Yeah, I really have. And who knew? Who knew? It was one of those things, it was an impulse purchase, as is many of the things that I've bought at Camden Market over the years. Yeah, 10 quid for a denim jacket. And you wear it once, oh, that's quite nice. And even the fact, I mean, it's got the buttonhole there. Let me take Peter off so you can see what I'm talking about. There's a buttonhole right about there, the middle of my chest. I think I tried to take it off a bit too quickly once. I don't know what I was doing. Sure, it was exciting, but I tried to take it off, and I slightly tore the buttonhole. So all of the buttonholes are about yay wide. I've got one that's about that wide. I could get it fixed. I'm sure I could fix it myself. I know my wife could fix it. Why would I bother? It's part of the character of that jacket. So yeah, I mean, I genuinely don't know how many times I would have worn that over the years. It'll probably get an outing at some point this week. And think about that from an excavator point of view. I mean, I know we talk about the the sustainability side of things in hanging on to equipment for that little bit longer, but there's also that look and that feel. A lot of the machines that I operate still have the plastic on, the cellophane on the seats. I don't think they're expecting me to have any trouser accidents or anything like that. It's just, that machine, after I've had a bit of a bugger around on it, is probably going on a low loader and off to a customer. So I understand that. They've still got, brown paper on the floor to stop my dirty boots wrecking it and everything else. I don't get to really play with machines that are bedded in. I wonder about, from a journalism point of view, and it was a point that Chris Ford made earlier, when we were showing off that Hyundai machine. They were talking about no problems after 1,700 hours, which, that's fine. That's okay, that's fine. But what about revisiting that 5 years later when it's really put in some hours? When, as Chris rightly said, actually said it might be 17,000 hours. When it's really clocked up some proper hours, taken some knocks, been put back together once or twice. That's when I think you see the real quality. Chris Ford is on his way out the door. He says, see you tomorrow at parade time. See you then, Chris. Peter says, important week for my group this week. An important call that could change everything on Thursday. Can everyone cross their fingers for me, please? I type with my fingers crossed most of the time, Peter, so I will do that for you. Not a problem at all. Jim Turner says, morning, peeps. Good morning, Jim. I'm not going to say it, but you know what you've missed on the Today Show. You know what you've missed. Just one day, yes, one day we will have a morning monologue without a glitch. We never have. I mean, the morning monologue doesn't go all the way back to the beginning of this show. But it goes back probably 300 or 400. And I don't think I've ever actually got through one and thought, nailed it. Don't think that's ever happened. Not entirely sure it ever will. The problem with me is I can read and I can speak. Struggle to do the two at the same time. And sometimes I also get a bit excited about the next bit that's to come. That's what happened there. I'd been okay. I'd been pretty good all the way through it. But then I could sense the payoff. And I was quite excited to bring it to you. And then stuck my tongue out and tripped over it repeatedly. What can I tell you? Peter is tipping his hat to Chris on his way out the door. And there's Peter saying, morning, Jim. How's shiz, pal? Yes, how's shiz, Jim? How is your shiz? Anyway, people, that's going to do me for today. I've got plenty of other things to be doing, including getting the next book ready. Something else I'm working on. Yeah, that's me, Peter. That's that on my gravestone. It will say Mark Anthony, bollocks the punchline. You can leave off the ha-ha, but that's absolutely true. Santa the Fitter turned up just as the show was about to start, and we ended up having the crack. Time well spent, I would say. Time well spent indeed. People, go and have a fine and splendid day. Peter, good luck for Thursday, whatever that is. Chris, I think you've probably left, but thank you for the update that you sent me on WhatsApp. Everybody else, go look after yourselves. Behave yourselves. Be good to each other. I'll see you again tomorrow. Enjoy everything, everyone. Peter, I fully intend to. See you on the morrow.